All right, welcome everybody to this week's edition of MMA Cheat Sheet Live. This is Brandon Arcade, and I'm joined as always by Chris Bloodrain39. Ridge is at wrestling practice, I believe. Is that what he said he was doing? Wrestling practice?
Yeah, wrestling.
Okay, well, good for him. He's teaching the youth. This week's card is a UFC Fight Night card on FS1. It is BJ Penn versus Yair Rodriguez. And starting off the night, we have Dmitry Smolyakov versus Cyril Asker. Smolyakov is coming in at minus 120, and Asker is plus 100. DK has this at 8,200 for Smolyakov and 8,000 for Asker. Chris, lead us off on the first fight of the night.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be favoring Cyril Asker here quite a bit. Just seems to have better technique, quite a bit more power, better speed. Smolyakov, in his UFC debut, he was fighting. He did have. They both had tough fights. Asker went against Jared Cannonier. Smolyakov went against Luis Enrique. And problem is, you got to watch both of them. But I've watched, multiple fights in both. Even before they joined the UFC, just to kind of get myself a little bit more into it. The thing I didn't like about Smolyakov is kind of a quitter. Tapped really quickly in that fight. Was tired basically after 3 minutes. Literally 3 minutes. He was just gassed, completely done. Maybe just a UFC debut thing. Maybe it's improper training. Maybe I guess I forgot to look at that fight there specifically. But regardless, even his professional record is not impressive. Collective record before he had a fight that he fought against a guy who was 7-3, and then he went against Luis Enrique. Combined record was 13-24 of the fighters he fought before in his record before joining the UFC. Not impressive. Asker has at least fought some guys, like a 9-3, 10-6, 14-3 guy. He's actually beaten some guys with winning records and seems to have a little bit more heart. And I'm just going to go with him. He's 8,000, a little bit of a value there compared to Smolyakov, a little overpriced at 8,200. So I guess Smolyakov is bigger, but that's not going to mean that much to me. Cyril Asker by first round knockout.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at only a 2-inch height advantage for Smolyakov, and I think, like, last fight, he weighed like 6 pounds more. So, I mean, when you're talking about heavyweights, it's really not that big of a difference, considering usually the smaller heavyweights typically do better. I mean, Cain Velasquez walks at like 236, I agree. I definitely think that the scoring on this is flipped a little bit. I think it should have been 8,000 the other way. Excuse me. So I definitely agree on that one. Moving on. The next fight is Bojan Mihajlovic. I bet you I said that wrong. Mihajlovic.
Mihajlovic. I think is what I'm seeing. But you know me, I'm terrible when it comes to Russians and Serbians and whatever these guys are over there. I don't even know.
Well, I'm usually good at it, but I got my Mike Goldberg going on tonight since they just fired him. So I'm going with Bojan. We'll just call him Bojan. He's going up against Joachim Christensen. In this fight, Mihajlovic is plus 185 with a DK price of 7,400, and Christensen is minus 220, the favorite, with a price tag of 8,800. In this fight, you're talking about two light heavyweights that used to be heavyweights, and for me personally, I don't see a lot of value in taking the underdog in this one. Mihajlovic, to me, he just doesn't exude UFC top talent, but the light heavyweight division is so thin. I mean, they're trying to make something out of nothing with this fight. So I'm going to go with Christensen on this one, but I'm not happy with his price tag. I think 8,800 is a little too high. What's your take?
It's high, but I think he's probably the safest for a knockout in this entire card, actually. I really broke down Mihajlovic quite a bit here, and he's a guy, he relies only on power, and the fact that I actually went and looked at every fighter that he fought as a professional. He lost his first 3 fights to a guy who was a career record 1-2. Next fighter was 9-8 record. Next guy was 15-8. So they just, all right, and he was actually 5-0 at the time, and beats Mihajlovic, and all of a sudden Mihajlovic starts fighting some pretty lame competition. Here's where it starts. Here he fights a guy who never fought professionally before, loses, never fights again. This is back in 2007 when I'm starting all this. I'm talking about next fight goes against a guy who's 13 and 25. Next guy, yeah, and he looks like he's lost 25 fights too. He looks really bad. Next guy he goes against is a guy who was 0-0, loses, never fights again. Next fight goes against a guy, same thing, 0-0 record, loses, never fights again. And by the way, all three of these guys never had an amateur record either. So it's really fishy that he gets to fight three guys as a professional who has no amateur experience that I could find, and then no professional fights either. So the next fight, he goes against a guy who was 2-0 at the time. He beats him, never fights again. Fights a guy again who is 18 and 22, who had actually lost 7 of 8 fights leading up to this fight. Next fight goes against the same 13 and 25 guy. This time when he fights him, at the end of the fight, he actually kicks the guy when the referee breaks up the fight. He kicks him when he's down and then spits at his corner. Absolutely low class. Next fight he goes against the guy who's 5 and 4. Next fight was against that same 9 and 8 fighter that he lost again. He won this time. And then his next fight was against a guy who was 0 and 6. So in that 10-fight winning streak that he had, where in there am I supposed to be impressed? There's nothing in there. He fought a guy twice who was 13 and 25, another guy who was 18 and 22, 3 guys who had never fought before and then never fought again after that, and then a guy who was 0 and 6 during that span. That is one of the most atrocious things I've ever seen. It's literally like Serbia was just, they needed somebody to cheer on him. For some reason, too, if you watch this guy, you watch this fight, the crowd goes nuts. They love him. Absolutely love him. So getting anybody to go in there, it's almost like this is just nothing but setup fights to get this guy to be a professional someday somewhere, which UFC bought hook, line, and sinker, and now I'm literally all in on Hakeem Christensen, excuse me. The guy can take a shot. He's got good ground game with a willingness to stand up too. You know, even if he's getting hit, he hits back. He's not going to cover up and let the referee break up the fight. You know, he can move at angles. Had a good showing against Henrique de Silva, who's he's a man beast. That guy he's a beast.
He's going to fight for the title.
More about him, I'm sure. Yeah. He lost the clinch game bad, but he's dropping him the second. Control for a while, but he got reversed and subbed there late. He showed a lot of toughness and was not nervous in his UFC debut. He showed he could just handle tough situations well, and he defends well during opponents when they're brawling at him, really, putting him in bad situations like I talked about earlier. I'm really impressed with this guy. I just don't think there's anything, when you're watching both these guys on tape, these two fighters on tape, there's nothing Mihaljevic has that Christensen hasn't seen before. And I can tell you right now, Mihaljevic has not seen anything that Christensen can dish out. Nothing like it. So yes, I'm all in on Christensen, even at 8,800. It probably is a fair price if you actually watch the two fighters.
That's probably true. I was kind of curious about everything the way you ran it down, and I've had time to think about it. And I'm kind of curious, who is Bojan's management? Because those sound like fights that the organization also represented the talent. Like, for instance, Ed Soares, he's the guy who manages all the big prominent names in Brazil's, from Anderson Silva to Jose Aldo and all those guys at one point. Pederneiras does Jose Aldo now, but Ed Soares used to run RFA, and then he merged with Legacy Fighting Championship, but he still runs that organization. So not only is he the fight promoter, he's also the manager. And a lot of times you see those sort of showcase fights in those situations, and that's what sounds like Bojan's whole career was. All right, moving on to the next one. By the way, I'm 100% in on Christensen, even with his outrageous price tag. Actually, I think he'll end up scoring 100-plus points and making a statement. All right, next up, we got Walt Harris versus Chase Sherman. I really like this fight, actually. This is a fun fight between two guys who actually could have the potential to be something in the UFC. Harris is minus 135 as a favorite, but he has a really gaudy DK price at 8,700. And Sherman is only plus 115. Not that big of a dog, but his price is 7,500. So just based off the implied numbers, there is some value on Sherman. He had a really tough matchup against Justin Ledet, who's a pure boxer, like with actual professional boxing experience, and you could tell he just couldn't handle himself in the stand-up game against a guy like that. Walt Harris has had sort of an up and down career. He's been in and out of the UFC a couple of times, even though he's only 8-5. The most notable thing that sticks out to me on Walt Harris was his head kick knockout loss to Nikita Krylov. In this fight, officially, I would take Sherman and some GPPs, but I don't mind Harris as a play at all, even with his big price tag, though I'll probably end up going with somebody else. Chris, give me the lowdown on Sherman versus Harris.
Yeah, this is kind of a tougher one. The pricing kind of hurts Walt Harris a lot because I was favoring him quite a bit. Walt Harris trains with guys like Bigfoot Silva, so this guy can take hits. And he's good at tucking his chin when he's about to get hit, and he's good at countering. He can eat a punch and turn around counter and drop people with it. He actually did that to East. His blanking on his first name. I apologize.
Oh, Cody East, yeah.
Yeah. So I know he seems to be improving in every fight too. And he works with American Top Team, and a lot of those guys who really are true prospects who work with American Top Team, they do progress in each fight. I would like to see more pressure from him. If he pressures Chase Sherman, stalks him, has no fear, and does what he's supposed to do, I think he takes this pretty easily. Chase Sherman, I don't know. I know it was against Ledet, but even some other fights, he's pretty easy to counter against. He's got good leg kicks, but again, it's his head movement. He doesn't have the greatest head movement. So when he's swinging at people, he leaves himself. He gets countered quite a bit. And I am a little nervous on Chase Sherman. I think, again, at 7,500, he definitely has GPP upside. I forgot to look how many finishes he has in his career. Do you have that offhand?
I actually think all of his wins are finishes. Maybe one isn't.
They are, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. I thought he was a finisher. And that's, anytime you got a guy, you're heavyweight, and you're a finisher, $7,500 is a GPP play. There's just no doubt about it. But Walt Harris is probably going to have the better training, the better technique, the better speed, the better strength, better stamina. For the most part, he pretty much, I think he's favored in almost every aspect that you would want in a fight. So I guess maybe the $8,700 price tag is fairly legit, but this is going to be a boring decision win if he doesn't, pressure. If he needs to pressure, he needs to put the pressure on Chase Sherman, and then he wins this fight pretty easily. And I'm pretty sure guys over Top Team are making sure he's going to do that this fight. So if I can see that, they're seeing it too.
Yeah, Chase Sherman, despite his wins that he has, and they're all finishes and whatnot, he reminds me of the second coming of Christian Moorcraft. And I know that's not a very familiar name for some people, but for me, he's a guy that went in there and beat a couple of scrubs, but anytime he fought a big name, like he lost to Stefan Struve, he lost to Matt Mitrione, that actually got him cut, and I think ended his career at that point. But all the guys that he beat in the UFC, I can't even remember their names. And there used to be a point where I could tell you the name of every guy who's ever fought in the UFC. So, we're not talking about a kid who, exudes top flight competition. And so I'm actually totally okay with Harris's price tag, but it does seem, I don't want to call it a red flag, but it is certainly a yellow flag. 8,700 is a lot, but you're right. He needs to move forward the entire fight. If this thing ends up being a decision, I do not see him making value at 8,700. They're just not. They're just not going to throw enough strikes. It's going to be a lot of laying on each other because these guys are going to gas. Walt Harris, he has a tip. Like in some of his fights, he fights nervous. He gets this sort of nervous energy about him where like his fight or flight instincts kick in, and you can see that his complete fight IQ is gone. He's just in there, he disappears from all of his training, and he's just trying to survive. And that's not going to win him this fight. So I really hope that he comes with that game plan that you were talking about. He really needs to, rely on his training and not on his instincts. It's kind of the opposite of Cowboy Cerrone.
Exactly. No, actually, the first thing I wrote down was sloppy technique at times, great technique at times. So, anyways.
All right, moving on. The next fight of the night is laughable at best. This is sort of a filler fight, which I wish they would stop doing this in the UFC, but we're talking about Jocelyn Jones-Lybarger versus Nina Ansaroff. And the most credible thing about this entire fight is the fact that Nina Ansaroff is the champ Amanda Nunes' girlfriend. Outside of that one fun little fact, there really isn't a whole lot to go off of this fight. You can't really find a Vegas odds on it, and DK has it priced to 8,100 across the board. But we're talking about two rudimentary 500 at best fighters. Other than the fact that they're 115-pound straw weights, there will be some volume. It's just not going to be impressive. I am totally fine with people who want to go 100% on Ansaroff, but considering there's another 8,100 matchup that's between two flyweights, I would fade this fight completely, in my opinion. What do you got on this one?
Ansaroff does things that makes it really hard to want to put her in a lineup. I don't know. I don't like her very much. However, in this fight, there's no comparison when it comes to power and speed. Jocelyn Jones-Lybarger might be the weakest human being in the world when it comes to fighting at all levels, amateur, kids level, whatever. I literally have never seen anybody so weak in my life. Torres could hit her at will. Oh my gosh, what is that redheaded Marcos, Randa Marcos, whatever. She had absolutely no fear of Jocelyn Jones' power. Absolutely no fear whatsoever. Stalked her the whole time. Anytime Jones tried to throw a punch, it's not even just eating it. There's just nothing to eat. I just don't even know how to explain how unbelievably weak she is. There's nothing behind her punches. I don't know how she ever got a win. I mean, she must have been fighting women who somehow, some way, are weaker than her.
Well, she's an atom weight. That's the problem. It's like when she was in Invicta and then regional shows, she fought at 105 pounds. She wasn't even. She's only in.
Okay.
She took that fight against Marcos on short notice, so she moved up 10 pounds. And this is sort of like every time somebody does the UFC a favor and takes a short notice fight, they give them another fight, and that's sort of what this is.
Okay. I guess that explains some. Yeah, I'm not. If I took Ansaroff, maybe I could do. If I'm trying to mix and match a little bit because maybe I'm scared of my another fighter around that price range, I could mix and match some GTPs and maybe put Ansaroff in there because I wouldn't be. But here's the thing about Jones-Lybarger. She can take a hit. She's pretty tough. So Ansaroff could definitely just tee off on her for 3 straight rounds and score close to 100 points because she just lands that many significant strikes. But I don't know. This could also go to the ground. I mean, and they just kind of don't. There's not much they can do. And Jones-Lybarger is a blue belt, and maybe she does something. I don't know. I'm just staying away from this fight. I've not had good luck with women fighters in my lifetime. I'm not gonna try to even roster either one of these two, except for, again, maybe if I'm making a few extra lineups, maybe Ansaroff. Yuck. Let's move on, please.
Yeah. Here's one fun fact I guess I can say about Lybarger real quick. She has a twin sister who also fights, and neither of them made the cut for that season of Tough. All right, moving on. We've got Devin Powell, the second guy on this card who comes from the Dana White show looking for a fight. He has an 8-1 record. He is priced at plus 190, and he has a very tiny price tag of 7,200, one of the lowest on the card. He's going up against a relative enigma in fighting, Drakkar Klose, who has a 6-0-1 record and is priced at 9,000. Vegas has him at minus 225. He's coming out of the MMA Lab Academy, which is where Benson Henderson trains and a couple other guys that have been in the UFC and Bellator. I'm really surprised that Drakkar Klose came in with such a big price tag. I really thought he was going to be a sleeper and we were going to get some extra value there, but they just blew his price tag out of the water. And so it kind of scares me a little bit. I was totally on Klose before pricing came out, but now that pricing has come out, I feel like Powell is severely undervalued. I'm still probably leaning towards Klose to win the fight. How, I'm not sure, but Powell has some serious implied value. What do you think of this fight?
Even before pricing came out, and before I looked at Vegas odds, I actually thought Devin Powell had a pretty good chance of winning this fight. So the fact that I get him at 7,200, this is a guy that I'm pretty darn high on, is unbelievable to me. I'm just shocked at this price. When I saw that price, I got pretty giddy. I'm not going to lie. I got pretty giddy. I really like Devin Powell's ability. This guy works very hard. He's extremely dedicated. He has literally dedicated his life to martial arts. Not that other fighters don't, but this guy just has a hunger for it that you can't teach this type of hunger that he has. And he's got a good Brazilian jiu-jitsu and boxing background to go with it. You know, he starts very fast in all his fights. Great ground game. He's able to weather storms, too. He's extremely tough. He's got good elbows. And elbows is my, if you've listened to podcasts before in the past, elbows are probably my favorite weapon next to leg kicks.
Yeah, I think we like to say elbows just as much as we like to say Dong Young Kim.
Dong Young Kim. Yeah, I know. But again, when you're talking about Drucker Close training with Benson Henderson at MMA Lab, that is a very good school. And maybe like the third favorite thing we like to talk about is where a person trains at. That is huge.
It matters
in the UFC.
I said it matters. It definitely does.
It does.
I mean, there are very few guys that can come from nowhere camps and win. I mean, the biggest ones that stick out is Conor McGregor and Demetrius Johnson. They both have pretty much their own camp. But, I mean, look at the rest of them. I mean, we're talking about the Ronda Rouseys of the UFC.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
No, that's the only reason that gives me concern is when you have that type of coaching, those coaches find everything. Everything. They are viewing every tape that Powell ever had. They are dissecting. Not that Powell's trainers don't do the same thing, but there's a reason why MMA Lab gets the best fighters or gets some of the best fighters, and why fighters stay there. I mean, there is a reason for it. The best is the best. It makes it very tough, and Drakkar Klose, another one. Good ground game, very good stand-up, crisp, clean punches. Just another very good technical fighter. This is a shocking price right here, 9,000, 7,200. It's not leaning. I'm not crazy high on Powell. Like, I think he's just going to dominate, but I was leaning a little more towards Powell, like in the 55 to 60 to 40 range. 35, 40 range, and it's 7,200. Even if this fight goes the distance and he loses, he's probably going to at least give us enough points, 30, 40 points to, hey, that's great.
I think
a lot of his best fighters that we're really high on. And if you're just trying to do a cash lineup where you're just simply trying to cash and take out 50% of the competition, this is a guy I think that can help you roster the expensive fighters you're going to need.
I think despite the fact that these are two guys that no one knows about, this could be a fight of the year contender. Like, everything that you're saying and what I believe as well, like, this fight is much closer than people are giving it credit for. And I have no problems with Powell. I actually think he can go a lot higher than 30 points in a loss. I think he can get to 50 or 60 in a loss.
Because these guys are smaller guys, and because of the transition, anytime you get a reversal, anytime you advance the top position, anytime you get a takedown, these are 3, 6, 5 points that I'm talking about, something in the price, in that scoring range.
Yeah, takedowns are 10. I said takedowns are 10 points.
I think they're 5, actually. I think I was wrong. I think I was saying 10 points last week. I believe they're 5. I apologize for that.
Did they modify scoring again?
I think they did, because when I was looking at my scoring and I was watching takedowns, I was seeing 5 points for takedowns. Well, I could have swore they were 10 points last time, and now it's 5. So whatever, I don't know. Maybe they modified it.
Regardless, I think he could still get there. Yeah.
Oh, I agree.
All right. So officially on this fight, are we big on Powell and okay with Klose?
At that price for Klose, no.
It's so big. It's so unnecessary. 9,000 is ridiculous.
That is insane. I don't understand. That's like Amanda Nunez territory against her next opponent. I mean, whoever that is. I don't care. It's going to be 9,000 plus for her.
I bet you she gets to 10,000. I'm going to make a prediction that she's 10,000.
Yep, I actually agree with you 100%. She's too dominating. It's going to be impossible not to not have her at 10,000. She's just too dominating.
All right, moving on is the most controversial fight, I think, which is let me see here. I don't want to get my statistics wrong when I run this down. I'm talking about Tony Martin versus Alex White. It's pretty obvious that Alex White is moving up in weight, and Tony Martin is an outstanding prospect, though he's had some really tough fights since he joined the UFC. Martin, however, is minus 280 with an 8,900 price tag, and White is plus 230 with a 7,300 price tag. I think White moving up in weight is a good thing, and I think that him fighting a guy like Tony Martin is a bad thing. However, I think that these pricing and scoring is just a little off. I think White should have been closer to like 7,700, and Martin should have been down to like 8,400. But that does imply that there's some value on White, though I think Tony Martin might still have enough in the tank, the better cardio, to actually win this fight. I really like Alex White as a competitor. I like the way he moves. I like the way he strikes. You know, he's kind of like a bigger version of Dominic Cruz, you know, save the last Dominic Cruz fight. What's your take on this one?
I agree. I love Alex White. Another really shocking price tag here. I don't want to call it grappler versus striker here, but, you know, Tony Martin, he's gonna look to be, you know, he's a sub guy, you know, 8 submission wins and 10 victories. Obviously, he's a sub guy and very good ground game to go with it. One thing I've noticed, he struggles very badly against leg kicks. He's not as good on his feet as you would like him to be. Maybe training with American Top Team over there again, another top school that we like. Should start ringing a bell every time we say that.
Yeah. Or take a shot. Yeah, take a shot next time.
Yeah, right. Anyways, again, a great school that he's. I'm sure that they're working with the guy, improving on his game and making him, you know, better, so he learns how to check leg kicks a little bit better. Because Alex White, like you were talking about, he's a good striker. He's got great angles, moves around the cage well, utilizes his distance really well too, and he mixes in all sorts of kicks and punches. I mean, he's got a lot of weapons. This isn't a guy. I mean, he's got everything. He literally can do everything, and it's really fun guys to watch in the ring. And I'm not sure what would happen if he went to the ground. I'm hoping. I guess I did not maybe see enough of him to be able to know how good his takedown defense is and all that stuff. Maybe you can go in on that a little bit.
On White's or Martin's takedown defense?
On Alex White takedown defense. I guess I did not see enough on Alex White to on his, because I've seen him a lot against strikers. I haven't really seen him against enough great grapplers to know if he could defend the takedown well enough. You know what I mean?
He's got those rangy legs, so he kind of has the Carlos Condit syndrome, where he is hard to take down, but when he does get taken down, he's very comfortable on his back, and he throws the legs up. He's always looking for submissions from the bottom, but typically he uses those positions to scramble back to his feet. He's actually quite an adept grappler. He just doesn't need to use it very much because he's got such a long-reaching jab that it keeps people at his distance. Like, he's really good at fighting at his distance. Tony,
he is.
Yeah, and Tony Martin is a guy who will try to get on the inside at all costs. Like, if you could take Alex White's stand-up and Tony Martin's grappling, you'd probably have a number 1 contender on your hands.
Yeah. That's why I say it's kind of a grappler versus striker, but I guess I did not see enough of Alex White's ground game because exactly what you just said there. He, you know, even when I was just saying that, you know, he utilizes his distance really well. And he just does, and he's got so many weapons on his feet. So yeah, that's all right. So I guess both of us have to say that Alex White is very much in play here for GPP options. You know,
yeah.
You could even there might be kind of like what happened in this last card where, you know, I actually came one fighter away from winning a GPP in the big GPP. I did take down some small GPPs, but I ended up. If the thing is, you know, the people who had my exact lineup, except replacing Dominic Cruz for Cody Garbrandt, you won the whole thing. You won out of 58,000 people.
Yeah.
So, but you also left quite a few $1,000s left. He probably left almost $2,000 plus salary on the table to do that.
The MMA I was saying MMA is one of the sports where you can do that.
This is one of those where, like an Alex White, maybe a Devin Powell combination with maybe, another heavyweight that's, in the 7,000 range or something like that, combination with three of the top fighters that we like, a little bit later on. That might be the winner. Who knows? I mean, this is what happens in the UFC. It's not, salary means nothing. Vegas odds mean nothing. What they do in the ring means everything.
Yep. All right. So officially, Alex White is an extremely live dog. I actually think he might be the livest dog in the entire card. But I was saying, but Tony Martin is no slouch at all. So, I mean, there's no fault in taking Martin. I just can't figure out why he's 8,900. It's just ridiculous. The pricing is very odd for this card. All right, moving on. We're back at the heavyweights. We've got Alexei Olenek versus Victor Pesta. Oh, sorry about that. I just got a text and it made a ding. Let's see. Alexei Olenek is coming in at minus 145 with an 8,600 price tag, and Pesta is plus 125 with a 7,600 price tag. Based on it's another one of those situations where if you take Vegas odds and then do a little mathematic formula based on DK scoring, Pesta has implied value. But for me, this is a matter of how old is Alexei Olenek when he steps back into the cage, because the guy is 50 wins, 10 losses, and 1 draw. And before he had his last loss recently, I'm losing the name of the guy he lost to. I'm sure you'll tell us in a minute, Chris. But I really think that if Alexei Olenek is still on top of his game, he should win this fight, no problem. But Victor Pesta is an up-and-coming heavyweight. He's doing his best to mend his mistakes and evolve as a fighter, and he's getting better. I mean, he's. There's one thing you can say about Victor Pesta: the dude is a gamer. But for me, I just feel like which Alexei Olenek shows up in the cage is what is the number one factor for this fight. What do you got, Chris?
Yeah, what Victor Pesta tries to do against Derek Lewis, against Olenek, he's done. He wouldn't last in the first round. Pesta sat there against Derek Lewis. He just went for so many takedowns. Then I get it. I would not want to fight Derek Lewis with fists either. I totally get it.
It's true.
But dude's got heart. He can take a beating. He's got a lot of heart, but he seemed to have he had some accuracy problems against Tibera in his last fight. He tried to sit there and counter too much, and he just seems slow. I don't know. He comes out looking anything close to like that, he's done. Olenek will sub him. He's got 40 submission wins.
That's crazy.
It is, and I don't know. Yeah, you're right about the age thing. You always wonder when it's going to be that time he finally slows down and just that's it, because it happens overnight for a fighter. That's it. They're done. I mean, a lot of them will continue to fight for a while, but the ones who, like you and I, there's others out there who we identify these fighters right away after their first fight. We can tell when they're done, and they lose their name value. And it's great for us because people like people who were so high on Ronda Rousey last week. She was 50 to 60% owned in tournaments, for crying out loud.
That's ridiculous.
It is. If you know anything about the sport, she should have been 5. I mean, but that's whatever. She's former champ. I understand it. But this is one of those. I'm pretty high on Olenek here. I don't know if I have him in cash. I don't know what I'm going to be doing for cash. We got 4 heavyweight fights on this card. Makes it really tough for cash this week. But I do feel confident in a lot of fights. So I'm just going to wait and see what happens. Get more information, check weigh-ins, because those are always very important for us. Look at the weigh-ins. We actually got some extra value by watching the weigh-ins with last card. I mean, you think about it, Ray Borg. We were fairly high on Ray Borg, but then we watched the weigh-ins, and then we were 100% in on Ray Borg after we saw those weigh-ins.
Yeah, even though Borg missed weight.
What was that?
I said even though Borg missed weight.
Yeah, but Borg didn't look like crap.
Right. So, he decided to forfeit the money in order to feel good. It's something Ridge would talk about. He's actually the master of cutting weight. He understands the process. He's done it many times. So when it comes to those situations, I really wish Ridge was back with us just for that sort of input. Though on this card, I don't see a lot of people struggling with weight.
No, I don't think we're going to have a lot of problems with this one, especially because we don't have Alex White and
he's moving up.
Fight. That's the only one we were wondering about, but we both think it's going to be at 155 and don't have to worry about any weight there. So, anyways.
So, the official line on Olenek versus Pesta, I think Pesta is somewhat live. I'm okay with it if you're looking for value under 8,000, but Olenek should be the pick here, in my opinion. You there, Chris?
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just letting you go on to the next fight here.
So. Okay. Let's see. The next fight on the card is Frankie Saenz versus Augusto Mendez. Saenz is coming in at 8,300, while Mendez is 7,900. Vegas has it as a pick'em fight, but I don't necessarily see it that way. Augusto Mendez, his only loss in his small 5-1 record is against Cody Garbrandt, who he fought at the beginning of last year, and then Garbrandt went on a tear and ended up becoming the champion. Frankie Saenz is a guy who entered the UFC taking a short notice fight against Eddie Wineland when Wineland was a top 10 guy. And he basically took him down and grinded him out for, the majority of the fight. It was a fun fight to watch, but Frankie Saenz has sort of been up and down since then. I always thought he was a bit of a pretender to the top 15 of the division. That doesn't mean he's a bad fighter. He definitely has a lot of heart, and he likes to grind it out. Augusto Mendez, to me, is a bit of an enigma. There isn't a lot of information on him other than watching him get flatlined by Cody Garbrandt. Scoring-wise, I feel like Saenz and Mendez are probably appropriately priced, 8,300 and 7,900. But for me, I'm leaning towards Saenz just because of his experience. What's your take on this one?
Yeah, I got to lean Saenz quite a bit too. Just even watching Mendez in his last fight before he went to the UFC. I mean, he wins, but gets dropped a couple times and still doesn't look very good on his feet. I don't know. Which is not good news for him. Here's one thing that there's 3 guaranteed things in life with Frankie Saenz. There's 3 things that are guaranteed in life. There's death, taxes, and Saenz dropping someone with a leg kick when he's in a fight with you. Have you ever seen a fight with him where he didn't drop his opponent with a leg kick? This guy is just vicious with leg kicks. They're absolutely nasty. He's a Division I wrestler at Arizona State. He's got probably some of the best cardio in the UFC. Good sub-defense. He is really aggressive on top, even with knees. I mean, he just doesn't stop. He just knees forever because he's got that cardio. He can sit there and strike at you, even if it's just kind of. He's annoying. He's a very annoying fighter. More than anything, even when he was going against Uriah Faber, he took a ton of hard elbows and strikes. It was still hitting back. Faber had a mounted crucifix. He just grabs him and throws him off. Like it was. I don't know if I've ever seen that.
It is rare
to have a mounted. What was that?
Oh, I said it is rare.
Yeah, and just how easy he did. He just grabs him and just throws him off. The guy is really strong. But again, versus Wineland, he's a little hesitant. Probably concerned about his power. So I really think that Mendez is absolutely going to have to win by submission here. He's got a submission chance, of course. He's a really good BJJ fighter. I don't know. I think he just doesn't, I don't know, unless maybe it's been a while since he's fought, so maybe he's made enough improvements on his feet and is able to, I don't know if he even wants to go to the ground, though. I don't know. Just one of those guys, when you've got a guy who is a better wrestler, better striker, maybe not quite as good, his resume in jiu-jitsu, but still got a good jiu-jitsu game himself and good sub-defense. It's really hard to pick a guy like Mendez. It really is. So I'm pretty high on Frankie Saenz to win this fight. Probably decision. I'd be shocked if it was a finish. It's probably going to be a decision. Even that, he's only got 3 knockouts and 2 subs and 11 wins. So even numbers kind of back me up on that one. He's not as big of a finisher as some of the other fighters on the card. However, he's extremely busy. and at 8,300 with a pretty safe win, he might be a guy that ends up in a couple of my lineups.
All right, moving on. The next, we're going to start with the main card finally. We've got a flyweight matchup and one that I think will probably end up being the people's main event. This is John Moraga, always the bridesmaid, against Sergio Pettis. Little showtime. Moraga is coming in at plus 115.
Hey, he doesn't want to be his little brother. He doesn't want to be in the shadow.
Well, that's too bad for him because that's what he's going to be until he gets.
That's what he just. Sorry to interrupt.
No, he's got to beat Moraga, and then he's got to beat like 2 or 3 more guys at the top of that division and get a title shot before he gets out of his brother's shadow. I mean, look how long it took Nate Diaz to stop being called Nick's little brother. I mean, now he's one of the highest paid fighters in the organization. It's crazy, but he can do it. Pettis is minus 135. I'm actually blown away that he's the favorite in terms of DK scoring. They got both these guys at 8,100. This is the other 81-81 matchup. But I know you're big on Pettis, but for me, Moraga has just faced better competition. He's fared well against better competition. He knows what it's like to be in with the absolute best fighter in the world. He didn't win, but he was definitely a game opponent. That fight came way too early in his career. He should not have fought DJ. He should be fighting DJ like after this fight instead of back then. For me, I just think Moraga has enough tools overall in fights at an elevated level to Sergio Pettis. I thought Sergio Pettis entered the UFC prematurely. I thought that he should have, definitely gotten a couple of key wins under his belt. Maybe fought a guy like Bibliatov, who fights over in World Series of Fighting. He's their champ over there. Pettis just didn't do enough before he entered the UFC, and he's sort of had even though he's 14-2, he's had sort of an up and down run. I mean, he lost to Ryan Benoit, who's a gamer, but you shouldn't be losing to Ryan Benoit when you're a Pettis. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm totally fine with the way scoring ended up. It does give value to Pettis, and it makes it okay to pick him. But for me, I think Moraga has the tools to win this fight. What's your take?
Losing to Benoit, Pettis dominated him, and he got caught. Every young fighter is going to go through those situations, and I think the kid has just gone through enough. I think he's had his couple of losses. He's had his, he kind of understands now what he needs to do to be himself. And I don't know, he got a little trouble in his last fight against Chris Cariaso. Kind of had in the end of the fight there, he kind of got caught in a heel lock there, but the fight ended and he was fine. Won away, walked away with a decision victory, and pretty much dominated him too. And again, this is a lot less competition than what Moraga has fought, and I get that, but sometimes I just have to sit back and just watch the two side by side, compare speed, compare power, compare everything that's happening right now. Moraga looked really bad in his last fight. That was an awful fight. Wow, that was bad. Got countered a ton. Wasn't throwing combinations. He wasn't busy, which is really weird because he's usually got another guy, good cardio. He's another Arizona State wrestler. He comes to fight. I mean, this is normally the thing on this guy. He just comes to fight. Good cardio. Good leg kicks and kicks in general. Takedown defense was a little suspect against some of the top fighters, but that's top fighters. That's really not fair to beat them up for that when you're going against number 1, number 2, number 3 ranked fighters in the world. But yeah, I'm still favoring Pettis in this. It's more of a 60-40 favoring of Sergio Pettis right now. That's where I'm at right now on Pettis, and yeah.
All right. Next fight on the main card. This is another one that has very intriguing scoring to me, pricing. We've got Court McGee versus Ben Saunders. Both guys are minus 110. It's a total pick'em fight, but McGee is priced at 7,800 and Saunders is priced at 8,400. So if you were big on Saunders, then he just sort of had some of his juice sucked out. Whereas Court McGee, to me, he's an outstanding conditioned athlete. Typically he likes to grind people out. He rarely has weight cutting issues. He's got a ton of heart, and it's hard to knock him out. I mean, this guy has a win over Robert Whitaker. That's like a really big accomplishment in this day and age. This big problem is he's missed a lot of time. He had some injuries. He sat out for a long time. He's finally back. And whereas Ben Saunders has been sort of a journeyman, hopped over to Bellator, beat a couple of good guys, lost to their best guys, got back into the UFC. Basically on a short notice fight. I believe it was against Josh Berkman. For me personally, I like Court McGee to win this fight in a grinding decision, but that doesn't mean Ben Saunders can't catch him. You don't see Court McGee get submitted, but that doesn't mean Saunders can't do it. I mean, the guy has a Gogo Plata on his resume. I think he might have two, actually. It's crazy how he comes out of nowhere with that stuff. For me, I'm officially on McGee because of his value and his price. How about you?
Yeah, this is another fight where we differ on quite a bit. I'm pretty high on Ben Saunders, actually, and kind of feel they got the pricing right. Reason I say that is I'm seeing some weaknesses in McGee that do not favor him in this fight very well. I think Ben Saunders' strengths are going to hurt McGee's weaknesses too much. Ben Saunders is extremely accurate with his strikes. And one thing McGee is very susceptible to is good strikers. His reaction time just isn't quite top notch. However, it probably doesn't have to be because he's really tough, can take a lot of hits, great cardio, and pretty much people can just kind of. He also throws a lot of strikes too. McGee actually threw 166 significant strikes versus Josh Neer one time.
Yeah, it was a great fight.
I wish I would have had him in my lineup for that one.
Yeah, it was a great fight. I really liked that fight a lot.
Yeah, that was a good fight. I just wanted to mention that right there, that this guy has upside. However, Ben Saunders, Eddie Bravo just raves about this guy. I love this guy. There's this guy, I don't know. I feel like if it stays on the feet, Ben Saunders has the advantage. Even if Court McGee goes to the ground and takes him to the ground, Ben Saunders has got a really good chance to just drill him with elbows. He's got a great rubber guard. He's done this in a couple fights, too, where he just holds the guy with his foot and then just drills him with elbows. So, yeah, the guy's got top position, but he eats 10, 15, 20 elbows for it. I don't know. I really like Ben Saunders a lot in this fight compared to Court McGee. Because you like Court McGee so much, I'm probably going to have a share or two of him in GPPs because, we haven't really differed a lot when we've done our podcast. Well, we don't differ very often. So for us to have two fighters where we differ quite heavily on is odd.
For me, it's because Ben Saunders is susceptible to being knocked out, whereas Court McGee rarely gets finished, and he does know how to knock people out. He's got cinder block fists. He's like a 170-pound version of Tim Boesch.
Yeah, I know. I get that. I don't know. Again, I have to just sit there and watch the speed differences, power differences, how they react to this, how they react to that. And that's why I try to watch as many fights as I can and watch them very closely. And I just see Ben Saunders as a better fighter in this. And again, when I also too look at my notes, when a lot of things, there's just, high accurate striker versus somebody who kind of eats a lot of strikes. So I don't know.
I will make one prediction from Ben Saunders. I think that he's going to at some point get a Muay Thai plum, and then he's going to use it to pull guard, but he's not going to mean to pull guard. I think he's going to try to go for either a flying arm bar or a flying triangle from that Muay Thai plum clinch, but it's just going to end up falling on his back and then probably eating a couple of shots. That's my prediction for that fight. Very specific. All right, so officially you're on Saunders, I'm on McGee, and since they're both minus 110, I think we're both correct. All right, moving on. The co-main event. We've got Joe Lozon versus Marcin Held. To me, this is a bit of a strange matchup. I don't know why they keep feeding Marcin Held to all these sort of like longtime stalwarts of the UFC. Guy, like he fought Diego Sanchez in his first fight in the UFC. He spent his whole career before that basically in Bellator, beating most of the guys over there. Whereas Joe Lozon's been like the consummate journeyman in the UFC. He has flashes of brilliance. surrounded by moments of mediocrity. The scoring on this is Joe Lozon minus 135, Marcin Held plus 115. But the glaring statistic is DK has Lozon at 8,500, whereas Held is at 7,700. To me, that doesn't make any sense. This should be closer to an 81-81 matchup. I think that the price tag on Lozon sucks some of the joy out of picking him. I do think that his jiu-jitsu is good enough for his ability to stop his defensive jiu-jitsu is good enough to stop the offensive jiu-jitsu of Marcin Held and make this a stand-up fight, where I think Lozon has a clear edge. But Marcin Held's a gamer. He's got 22 wins and only 5 losses for a reason. Though I just feel like even with the bad pricing, Lozon is definitely the pick. But what's your take?
I definitely favor Lozon in this fight. He's just, I don't know. In Hell's fight against Diego, arrogance literally cost him that fight. He was, he was winning on the stand-up against Diego, and even before the fight was telling everybody he could beat Diego Sanchez in a grappling match, and it was going to grapple with him, and basically gave away his game plan. I'm not even kidding. I mean, and Diego was even saying things like, if this guy wants to grapple with me, this guy's nuts. This guy's absolutely nuts if he wants to grapple with me. And he proved it. He definitely beat him in grappling. I don't know. I don't like guys who have low IQ in fights. I don't like people like that. I guess I didn't watch enough of him in Bellator. I've watched a couple fights, but not enough where I can truly say he makes that many bad decisions in all these fights. But that was a very arrogant thing to do. And and he knew he was going to be fighting in Mexico City and didn't even train long enough in the altitudes. That's another thing. Like, really? How do you not know Mexico City is way up in the air? How do you not know these things? I don't know. I don't like people with, that type of stuff. Joe Lozon, he takes chances to win. Very exciting to watch. But because he takes chances to win, he's willing to eat punches to get to throw a punch. Sometimes that can definitely cost him a fight, stuff like that. Even his last fight again, so decision loss for him, which is a close fight. Some people feel that he got robbed. I kind of think the judges got it right. I don't know.
I thought Jim Miller won the fight.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, but that's Lozon. Let's put it a different way. I thought Joe Lozon lost the fight. I don't necessarily think Jim Miller won the fight. I think Joe Lozon lost the fight.
Yeah.
All right. With that said, let's move on to the main event of the evening. We've got BJ Penn versus Yair Rodriguez. Penn is a gaudy plus 355 with a $7,000 price tag, and Rodriguez is minus 451 with a $9,200 price tag, the highest price guy on the card. This is literally the prodigy versus the new prodigy. We're talking about BJ Penn in his prime was the best fighter on the planet in multiple weight classes. And then something happened where he just decided that he didn't feel like training anymore. The guy used to struggle to make 155 pounds, and now he's fighting at 145 because he finally decided to leave Hawaii and train at a real camp. He goes to Greg Jackson's, where he's been for the last year. And I think it was around January or February last year, he announced that he was going to try to make this return to 145. He had a bunch of fights canceled, a couple of injuries to himself, and then he had like a domestic violence situation pop up that cost him another fight he was forced to pull out of. The UFC wanted to make sure all that was squashed before they actually billed him. Yair Rodriguez is a crazy, phenomenal, reckless sort of fighter. He goes out there and throws shit that doesn't make any sense, but he somehow is effective. He lands it. He's balls to the wall. He's not afraid to lose, which could be scary in a fight against a guy like BJ Penn. Even though BJ Penn is long past his prime and probably should have stayed retired, I do believe that there is a very small, like 10%, maybe 1 out of 10 chance that if Yair Rodriguez tries to throw something too flashy, BJ Penn will catch it. For instance, we'll say he tries to throw a crazy spinning head kick or something. BJ Penn still has the capability to catch that maneuver, take him to the ground, and secure a limb. his best sport outside of MMA itself, his best singular sport is jiu-jitsu. He fell in love with his boxing, and it ended up costing him the majority of his career at that point. Just go back and look at all 3 fights with Frankie Edgar. The guy never evolved. It was the worst display of talent wasted I've ever seen. Whereas Yair Rodriguez, to me, he might be too young for a fight like this. That doesn't mean he can't live up to it and rise to the occasion. But for me, it's a more interesting matchup than Price says. What do you got on this fight?
I'm pretty high on Yair Rodriguez just because I watched actually recent training videos that came out on YouTube on both fighters. The speed difference is incredible. Obviously, but BJ Penn looks old. He just does. He just looks old. I don't know. It's hard to have confidence in a guy who looks that slow, that old. I can't pick him. There's no way I can pick him. Yeah, he's chance, sure. Rodriguez goes for something stupid, ends up on his back, and BJ Penn gets on top of him and secures a limb and wins by submission. Sure, of course. It's a fight. Anything can happen in a fight. Just hard to pick a guy when it's with that type of speed difference. It's really hard.
I was really grasping at straws. I did clarify 1 out of 10 chance.
Yeah, I know you did. I know. I don't know if I even want to give him that. Last fight card, I said I was 97-3 on Amanda Nunes. This one, I might be 93-7. Yair Rodriguez. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no problems with anyone being huge on Yair, even with his #1 overall price tag. The kid is a stud. There's nothing that really sucks in his game, other than he's really easy to take down if you're that kind of a fighter. Like, I'm kind of glad he's fighting. That's the only way I'm glad he's fighting BJ Penn, because if he fought like a top guy like Chad Mendez, he'd just end up on his back the whole time. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit biased here, but I grew up watching BJ Penn, so it's really hard for me to watch him take a fight like this. I actually thought he had a better chance when he was booked to fight against Ricardo Lamas, because at least Lamas has taken a couple of ass whoopings and knows what it feels like to be on the receiving end of a really, really bad sort of beatdown. Lamas is still a top flight guy, but I just felt like, Penn had a better chance in that one than this one.
Yeah. So, I got really nothing else to say. So.
All right. Well, we are rolling up on the 1 hour mark, and we are done. Officially, we are huge on Rodriguez. We like Lozon. We're split on McGee and Saunders. We are slightly split on Moraga and Pettis. We're both big on Signs. We're both on Olenek, and we both really like the price tag on Alex White. Dwight Powell is a live dog as well at 7,200, and Liebarger Ansaroff is a total shit show. Harris and Sherman is a fun fight, and we could go either way in GPPs, but we think Harris overall is the guy to pick there. Miholovic versus Christensen is all Christensen all day, and Smoliakov versus Asker is, well, I can't even remember what we said, but yeah.
Asker is definitely the one.
All right, yeah. Big on Asker. For a split second there, I looked at Smolyakov's name, and I was thinking of some completely different guy that looks like Benil Dariush.
That's okay. They all sound the same over there. I don't know how they do it over there.
All right, so.
And all that, so, yeah.
Anything you want to add before we go off the air?
I am good to go.
All right, guys. Keep tuning into the Gut Room. Keep tuning in DFS Prime lineups. Follow us on Twitter at Brandon Arcade, at BloodRain39, at Ridgers10. Ridge hasn't been with us for a while, but he is still in our hearts, and he's still a member of this team. It's just a matter of scheduling. We all got crazy lives, and I hope you guys have enjoyed us on your drive or during your workout or however you decide to listen to this podcast. We really appreciate your time, and please give us some feedback. All right, everyone, signing off. Have a wonderful night watching fights.